Creating a game without a plan is a recipe for disaster.
Are you feeling overwhelmed, lost, or behind the 8 ball?
This video is going to teach you the skills to manage your game project.
If you want to learn organization, keep watching because class is in session.
Hello everyone, I'm Steel.
And I'm Teal.
And we're with Studio Blue.
Thank you for joining us for our Creator Classroom. Tonight's topic is managing your project. How to keep yourself on track.
So, this Creator Classroom was brought to you by our Patreon supporters and our Twitch subscribers, and I don't think you know quite what you've asked for. Hello, Big Game Freak. Hello, Teddy. Hello, Kioya. Hello, RPG Emma Valborn. If you're watching this live, please, hello, Rose Guardian. If you're watching this live, please give us a follow. Consider subscribing. And if you're watching this over VOD, please smack that like button, press the subscribe button, jingle that notification bell, leave a comment. I'm exhausted. Teal, let's just jump right on in. Hello, everybody. Despair. All right, well, hopefully this will help you out because this is actually a big, juicy one. You want me to advance the slides or you got it?
I got this.
All right, honey. Let's do this thing. Time to learn some management.
Here's a wonderful quote from Winston Churchill.
Oh, yes.
Those who plan do better than those who do not plan, even though they rarely stick to their plan.
That's right.
To plan or not to plan, right?
That is the question. The slime says, eat cookies. That's what the slime says. But this is actually a very important thing. And why is it important? Because the purpose of our presentation is to show you that even the most well put together game, if the project itself isn't managed well, the game could either take forever to come out or it could have tons of holes in it.
Right.
Tons of problems.
Right. The purpose of this classroom is to give you the tools to effectively manage your creative projects in order to maximize your productivity. You want to stay on track, not waste time working on minutia, and stay within budget, not throwing money at unexpected expenses. Our basic agenda is 1. Review the basics of project management in relation to game development and writing. 2. Showcase methods in which to manage your project. 3. To give you Studio Blue's generalized recommendations. And 4, discuss examples in which it's been done incorrectly and correctly. So, to put that, I guess, in layman's terms is, we're going to go over what project development actually is and how the life cycle of it works. We're also going to go over a number of methodologies. Some of them, if you're not involved in actual project management out at all, it's going to make your head hurt. We'll try to make it as easy as possible to digest. And then we're going to go over recommendation and why we recommend those and how you can actionably use those. This is a long and complex discussion and thought experiment based classroom, so buckle on in. Hello, Fexy, and hello, Despair, and anyone else who I hadn't said hello to. This is a big one, and like Kioya said, like any of Square Enix's latest games, if you're not organized, your project's not going to do well. Right.
Oh, okay. Kioya has a cert in PM.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome, yeah. Teal and I actually are project managers as well, and she focuses more on business. That's actually what our day job was prior to the pandemic. Yeah. She focuses on the business and financial side of project management, and I focused on the technology side of project management. And then the pandemic destroyed our main client.
Yes.
So, yeah.
All right, let's get back on track.
Yeah, let's get back on track. Track.
What is a project?
What indeed?
The Project Management Institute's definition is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. The key word is temporary. You cannot manage something ongoing the same way that you manage something that has a definitive end. This means there is a scope and a timeline. Also, there must be a final goal in mind, such as selling, free release, education, etc.
So basically, your project is the creation of your game. And it's very important that you understand that temporary thing, because if your game is never finished, it's not actually a project.
No,
it's a game as a service. But seriously, the creation of your game is your project. The maintenance afterwards, which is the bug fixes, updates, versioning, or if it's a game as a service or an MMO, the updating, that's a different thing altogether. That is beyond the scope of this. That is a change management issue that goes well beyond
the project management that we're discussing now.
Right. We're talking about making your game and putting it on itch.io or Steam.
So, ask yourself these questions to get started. What are you trying to accomplish? Every project needs a goal, or you're just spinning your wheels doing random tasks in the hope that you get some vaguely envisioned outcome. When are you trying to accomplish it by? You need a timeline to stay on track with your tasks. Otherwise, it will be years before you're finished, or worse, you never really finish.
Oh yeah.
You just lose steam and it dies in dev hell.
Like Fecky just said, if the game is never finished, it's a dream.
Yep.
So true.
How much do you have to spend, and where does it come from? Every project needs a budget so you don't scramble to cover unexpected expenses or go into unnecessary debt. Be mindful of your personal money and the money given to you by others. Who are you depending on to get this done? Knowing ahead of time who will be assisting you and what they will be doing ensures that the work you cannot do gets parsed out and done within the parameters you set. And lastly, who is waiting on you to get this done? The stakeholders of your project expect results. You need to make sure they get what they want, whether it is a return on investment, a product to promote or sell, or entertainment.
So before we move on, let me translate that into game dev layman terms. Your goal is to create your game, but it's not just to make a game. You can't be vague, like we say there below. To manage a project successfully, you cannot be vague in answering these questions. So for example, we're going to use our project.
Yeah.
Our goal is to create the first in a series of Rose and Heart JRPGs to release on Steam commercially. That's the goal. The timeline is we want to have it done roughly by 2024 for the first release.
Yes.
That's the timeline. Right now we're saying second quarter 2024, but do not quote us on that. We just have a year, but that's a timeline. It's in a position of years, not months or weeks. Budget. We have accrued a budget, which I'm not going to share that information. We have accrued how much we are willing to spend on this game and what we are willing to spend and not spend, and how much of that belongs to our own money, Studio Blue's money, because Studio Blue does have a budget, and money that has been either given to us by others, investment-wise, etc. Then there's the dependents. Who are we depending on to get that done? That would be our people helping us with art, people helping us with voice acting, people helping us with programming, all of that stuff. Those are our dependents, what was referred to a lot of time as contractors as well. Those would be your dependents. We're depending on them. Our stakeholders are you guys, the public, specifically the Studio Blue community, as well as the RPG Maker community, but the public in general on Steam who play JRPGs, the demographic that we've done our research on. So take all of that I just said and apply it to your game. And now you have the 5 questions for your game. Kyoya says, I want to have mine done before I die. And Kyoya, that is why it's not projectly managed. Projectly managed. That's going to be a new statement. Right.
Okay, let's expand on goals.
Let's do it.
Okay. For writing.
Right.
Okay, this is for all you writers out there.
So yeah, we're going to be doing this also in terms, I forgot about this, in terms of writing and game development.
Right.
Sorry about that. Yeah, both.
Okay, so this is the writing one.
Yeah.
So for the first question, what is your genre and subgenre? Some genres are divided into subgenres, others are not. Pick one and stick with it. If you meander from one genre to another, your book will be rejected by readers of those respective genres.
Right, you cannot write a mystery thriller that turns into a sci-fi rom-com. I mean, you'd have to have a damn good case for it. I shouldn't say you can't. There's no black and white, but Don't start doing one thing and then shift to another without it being so organic that your readers go, okay, it makes sense. Don't be Stark. We got Reboot 3. Did you make finish game or did you make things different? I was learning. Oh, gotcha. Okay. They're just talking about their projects and where things are at.
Okay.
That's cool.
Okay. Second question.
Yeah.
Who is your audience?
Very important.
Have a target audience in mind. You are writing for them. Your word choices, story ideas, concepts, and depth of research are driven by your target audience. Next question. What is your main story? The main story is what happens to the principal characters, both heroes and villains, and why. You can sketch out your main plot and theme here.
Fecky, don't worry. If you guys in chat want to talk about your project while you're listening and go back and forth, I'm monitoring chat while Teal's doing this. I'll throw out comments if I feel like I can, and if it's relevant. So no worries. You guys chat away. I'm good, Teal.
Okay. The next question. What is the bare minimum of narrative you need to tell your story? In other words, which character arcs and story arcs can you remove while keeping your main story intact? Next question. What is the overall story structure? It can be a rise, a fall, a recovery, a failure, a victory, or a defeat. Refer to the Introduction to Story Arcs classroom for more details.
Please do. If you haven't watched that classroom and you're a writer or a game developer, you probably want to check it out.
Last question. Which writing styles are you using? For example, you can choose from first person, third person omniscient, third person limited, reliable narrator, unreliable narrator, or even head hopping. You can research more styles online.
Right. So we just kind of gave a whole ton of information about writing in general. A lot of these are things we either have covered in our classrooms or will. You're going to see the same thing when you get over to the game development page, which is the next slide. We're just putting this out here so you'll understand. Before we can dive into what is project management, you have to understand the scope as a writer or developer, what it is that your project involves. Rose asks, what can we do if we have writer's block but know it'll happen later, just not in the scenes? So while that is indeed a writing question and beyond the scope of project management, I will very quickly answer that. The best thing to do whenever you have writer's block is don't try to write what you're writing. Focus on something else. Like literally go from something else. So if I'm writing a scene and I can't get through it, I'll either go write another scene later on. I'll go write something else that has nothing to do with this. Like I'll write a story about a carrot talking to a rabbit, a goldfish going through a door holding a gun, or a goldfish going through a gun holding a door.
Yeah.
Just something completely off the wall that gets your brain unstuck. Big Game Freak talking to picker. Kioya says pick a perspective and stick with it. Don't going from first to third. Exactly. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Don't. Stay with it. First person, third limited, third omniscient, etc., etc. Don't go any further. Okay. Oh, no problem. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to expanding on goals for games, for game development.
Yes.
First question. What is your genre and type? Pick a genre and type of game. All of your subsequent decisions on design, narrative, characters, etc. will be driven by this choice.
Yeah, you're gonna manage creating a turn-based JRPG very differently than a puzzle game or a sports game.
Who is your audience? Decide on your target audience. You will be crafting a game for them. Your choices in character design, story presentation, mechanical complexity, and maturity of themes, among others, will be decided by your audience. What are your main features? These can be things like a battle system, cinematic presentation, atmospheric tricks, procedurally generated mobs, roguelike dungeons, or special systems for growth and level progression, such as materia, character builder, personas.
So for those of you who have seen our game development creator classroom we did a few weeks ago, main features is just short form for core and secondary. So all those features that are in your game, we just call them main features for the purposes of this.
What features are absolutely necessary to tell your story? Think about which features you can get rid of to keep the complexity of your game palatable to your target audience. What is the scope of your game? Your game could take place within a single room or building. It could span a country or the entire world, or it could include multiple worlds. Also, decide if your story is meant to be told in one game or several.
As Kyoya says, what scope of my game? To quote a certain president. I can't even say that. Is that a Okay, so scope's important. You're going to manage a project related around a single game very differently than a large game because reasons. Go ahead. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
What technology are you using? Decide on your game engine. Also, consider things such as whether or not this is a virtual reality game, a multiplayer game, a game played over a network, or a game that has a leaderboard or some other ranking system.
Right.
So you need to take all these 6 questions and answer them before you even begin your project.
Right. I think for the sake of speed and Teal's sanity, and me not sleeping on the couch, I'll wait till she's finished with a slide, then start commenting. All of these are important, and you see how we go in order. The technology is actually the last one. You want to make sure you understand everything else about what your game is going to be before you decide on the technology, such as the engine. As we have always said, choose your engine based on your game and what works for your game. Don't try to make your game fit your engine.
Yes.
That happens.
That's a big one.
That is. And I'm seeing here in chat that some people have moved to non-RPG Maker engines because the RPG Maker engine doesn't fit what they're trying to make. And we applaud you on that. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with the RPG Maker engines.
No.
We love the RPG Maker engines. They are very powerful, deceptively so, but they're not good for everything. Decide what your project is, and then choose the technology to make that project happen.
Okay.
And it's huge. Got it. Okay, thanks, Kyoya.
Okay, let's expand on our timeline. How long do you expect to work on this project each week? Take into account other time commitments, such as day jobs, relationships, and household chores or errands. How much time do you put into it whenever you sit down? Carving out an uninterrupted chunk of time is essential. What tasks are the most vital for subsequent tasks? The more vital the task, the more priority it gets on your timeline. How long will it take to complete the project? This estimate will determine how you set your milestones.
We're going to get to all that in a little while. This is very important because understanding that timeline allows you to make sure that you're not spinning your wheels forever.
Yes.
And things such as milestones, which we'll get into, things like task and then subsequent tasks, we'll get into. But I want to draw a quick attention to that number 2 one. How much time do you want to put whenever you sit down? I always recommend, whether you're writing a book or anything really, or you're creating a game, to put down a block of time each day to work on it, even if it's for a little bit. You will get more done writing 500 good words a day than sitting down occasionally and writing a glut of 6,000. You'll become a better writer with the first option. Same thing as a game dev. You're going to put out a better game sitting down 1 hour a day to work on it than binging 24 here. I know that's crazy, but seriously, it is. Because it's consistency that creates a better product and generates a better project. Hey, Chaos, welcome to the stream. Good to see you. I'm curious about milestones and how look at those indie devs that are not doing this every day. They're not. They're just not. And Big Game Freak says, for me, I try to make myself accountable to someone. Keeps me on track. Yes, those are your stakeholders. So telling someone you're making a game, Big Game Freak, and that person saying, hey, how's your game coming? That makes them a stakeholder.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so more about the timeline.
Right.
Things to avoid. These are things to avoid when crafting your timeline. Being vague in your timeline. Saying things such as, when I get to it, or when I can work on it, is not acceptable.
No, it's not.
Another thing to avoid, overhyping the project before you have something to show.
Oh, yeah.
This is a great way to sow disappointment and anger amongst your stakeholders and tank your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing to keep in mind, underestimating the time required to complete certain tasks. If you're setting end dates that are totally unrealistic, that means you're setting yourself up or your team for failure right from the beginning. Lastly, forgetting about dependencies. Certain tasks are dependent on each other. If you fail to identify these dependencies and complexities, then you're going to have bottlenecks and delays.
All the way up to. So up a little bit. What I want to draw the big attention to is number 2. Thank you. A lot of people in smaller dev communities, including the RPG Maker community, have a habit of overhyping their project.
Yeah.
And reality in life gets in the way, and it's a great way to sow seeds of disappointment. Now, while this community can be pretty forgiving, because we all have lives and crazy shit happens, and none of us are actually trying to put out, I shouldn't say that. People in general are using this just for fun and not trying to put out a commercial project. Yeah, what Kyoya said, but mine will surpass Metal Gear. People try to do, they overhype with a flashy page on itch.io or a flashy post on RPG Maker Web or whatever, or heck, the Unity or Unreal forums. I'm doing this awesome thing and it's going to be great and it's going to be this and it's going to be that. And then people start following behind and nothing ever happens because these things take a long time. And then disappointment gets sowed. And then you feel like you have to rush out a demo or an early access.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, you're losing your credibility. Reputation is key, like Big Game Freak just said. And yeah, so don't overhype. Work on your timeline, figure out how long it's going to take, then you can start releasing information. We went dark after we decided that Rose and Hearts was going to be a 3D engine, a 3D game, so that we don't overhype.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so.
Sorry to hear that happened, Rose. Yeah, exactly, Kyoya.
Getting back to their questions, we've gone over goal and timeline. Let's look at budget. Expanding on your budget.
Mm-hmm.
Writers have to shell out money for certain expenses associated with the craft, such as word processing software and grammar tools. Research materials may be behind a paywall or be a book you have to buy. Lastly, you have to pay for a good editor. New writers often make the mistake of either discounting the need for another editor, or they hire someone who has little to no editing experience just because they are good with something.
Right, so...
Remember, you will get what you pay for, or don't pay for.
Sorry. Okay.
So this is talking about writing, as opposed to game dev.
Right. Okay. Word processors are cheap. You can go buy Scrivener for a cheap price if you don't want to get Microsoft Word. Scrivener is actually a great tool. Grammar tools, same thing. Grammarly, Pro Writing Aid, cheap stuff. That's not a big one. What's going to cost you the most are your writing materials and especially your editors.
Yes.
And I want to stress what Teal said about the editors. Just because your friend knows how to edit classroom papers, maybe they're a teacher, or did really good editing your college essay, that doesn't mean that they're going to be a good development editor for your book or a good proofing structure editor, type editor for your proofreading at the end. You need to find someone who's qualified, someone who has a portfolio, someone who has done it before. I'm not going to sit here and plug my wife for use because she's mine, you can't have her. But Teal has dev edited several of my books. I trust her. I'm less likely to trust someone who they say, oh, this person has just done a thing. So if you're looking for a development editor, if you're looking for a type editor, make sure they either have references outside of their buddy, or make sure they have a portfolio.
Yes. And we have a Boo Boo Hotep.
We do. Before we read out Boo Boo Hotep's entrance, editors who are really competent are going to cost you a lot of money. You were looking about $1,000 to $2,000 for a normal manuscript.
Yeah.
Easily. Be prepared to drop that, because that's what's going to cost to get an agent or a publisher to take your book seriously. especially if you've never done it beforehand. Go ahead. You want to read off Bubohotep's
Sure.
entrance?
Bubo says, Fog Gate appears in the doorway. Then a knight in shining armor comes through the fog and lifts up their visor to reveal Bubohotep. Whoa! How did I get here?
Welcome to the stream, Bubohotep.
Okay.
Yeah, so
yes.
let's see. So Yandere Simulator is a great example of overhype. Yes, absolutely, Tedsy.
That's true.
I do count myself lucky. I have plenty of expertise writing outside of game development. That's awesome, Fecky. Hey, if you've ever done any, if you ever published anything, share it with us. And let's see. Despair Party talks about Scrivener. Scrivener's amazing.
Yes.
Yes. Every November for NaNoWriMo, it goes on sale.
It does go on sale. Yes.
Yes. I will admit I'm old school and prefer Word, but if I want to use the structure to kind of put your stuff together, Scrivener 100% all the way.
Right.
And then Big Game Freak says, yeah, true, you got to build that portfolio. Exactly. If Teal ever wants to dev edit as a contractor, she can use my stuff as a portfolio piece because she done it.
So let's move on to expanding on a budget for games.
Yeesh.
For all you game devs out there.
Got any game devs out there?
Game developers have to purchase a game engine and any material resources that will be used. You may also be purchasing scripts or other code to use in programming certain aspects of your game. You will also have to pay people to do tasks you cannot do, or spend time learning how to do something yourself. Solo developers often make the mistake of either discounting their time or overvaluing their time. Your sweat equity doesn't figure into the cost of the project unless you are paying yourself.
Right, so there's a couple of things to unpack here. First off, that game engine. Nowadays, a lot are free. Unity and Unreal are free with a caveat: you pay after a certain amount of time. What's a game dev?
Thank you, Bubohotep.
God, it could be so snarky. But you still have to pay. I mean, even with the Unreal Engine, after that first million, you have to pay. So, unless you're going for something like Godot, you're going to be paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
Resources, code, script, etc. I don't think I need to go over that. Everyone knows you got to pay for resources unless you're going to find resources for free. Make sure they're public domain or you will get sued. And the last is that manpower. Manpower is the most expensive part of game development.
Yes, it
Paying
is.
someone else to do something you can't do.
Right.
Like whether it be a programmer, an artist, a musician, etc., etc., etc. That's the most expensive. But what I really want to do is call attention to that last line Teal read. Could you read it again?
Sure. Your sweat equity doesn't figure into the cost of the project unless you are paying yourself.
So there have been more than one developers on Steam that I have seen putting out games in various engines, whether it be RM, Unity, it doesn't matter, who say, it cost me $3,000 to make this game. And it's very obvious the game does not have $3,000 in it at all. And when you finally worm it out of them, they say $3,000 is the number based off it took them this many man hours to make it, and they would normally get paid this amount. That is BS.
No.
Your sweat equity as the solo head developer, unless you're paying yourself through your LLC, is irrelevant.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you put in 10 hours or 10,000 hours. Sweat equity does not equate to cost if it's your own sweat on your own project and you're not paying yourself.
There you go.
So when you're figuring your budget in, do not figure in how much your work you're putting in as the budget. That's not monetary budget.
Right.
Despair Party says, if you want RPG Maker for free, Wolf RPG Editor is a free indie game editor that's usually popular in Japan. And a lot of those were made there. That's very cool to know.
That's
Despair.
good to know.
I did not know that.
Okay.
That is very awesome. Maybe you can pop a link either in channel or on our Discord. Put it in our Discord. Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's expand on that fourth question that we were asking ourselves about dependence. All right, expanding on dependence.
SB, you're cute.
Have a backup plan for each and every person you are depending upon. Never depend on anyone to do something for your project if their sudden departure would break your project. Never get friends or family to work for free.
Pay everybody.
There's a whole host of problems that come from doing this, up to and including shoddy work and fractured relationships. Bottom line, you shouldn't really use them, but if you must, pay them. Negotiate rates, deliverables, and timelines before agreeing to anything. The expectations need to be laid out for and agreed upon by both parties to minimize misunderstandings and possible legal action. If possible, use a formal contract drawn up by a media attorney. This is the best way to set expectations and make the arrangement legally binding on both parties.
Studio Blue will always sign a contract before it enters an agreement with something, whether it be streaming something on Monday nights or making, working on someone else's project to help them critically analyze it inside and out. Whether it be us and a composer, we will enter a contract agreement with everything.
Yeah.
Because it's safety, not just for us, but for them. We want people to be protected.
Yes.
And we want to be protected ourselves. Negotiating rates, deliverables, and all that. That's all negotiation, which is beyond the scope of this classroom.
Right, but you need to do things like that so that you get the work done.
Yeah. Like Fecky said, it's a CYA on all sides. Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, there's this wonderful website, and people are like, I can't afford an attorney. There's this wonderful website called Legalshield. Legalshield.com, and you basically are subscribing for a lawyer on retainer, and it works. Now you have to be in the U.S., so that's the kind of the caveat,
right?
But it's good. So there are ways you can get a media attorney or someone to help you out without having to spend thousands of dollars to have a document reviewed. Most lawyers don't charge that. I say that with the caveat of I'm not a lawyer.
Right.
Let's see. Kiyoya says if you want something done right, do it yourself. Chaos says pay the people.
Yeah, always pay the people.
Always pay the people. Always pay your people. Like, never allow someone to work for you for free. Even if you pay them $5 because that's all they want, give them some money.
Pay the people.
Pay the people. Reverie says even paying friends, family for work is not always good unless you know they will get the work done. 100%.
That's 100%. That's why it is just not a good idea to get your friends and family to do it.
Right.
Because, as I said, fractured relationships, shoddy work.
Straight up.
Yeah. Because they're family.
Right. Teal and I, we work together as business partners and spouses because we entered into a business agreement together. Whoever has a partner, I think that's Becky, make sure there's some kind of agreement between you and your partner or whoever that is.
Yep.
Before you start working, even if it's just an LLC, something to formalize it. Because shit happens. And when someone feels screwed by someone they care about and love, it hurts that much more. And it's that much more damaging. If I screw up, I do. Well, there you go. Do you have to sue yourself? Yes. Sue yourself, SB.
Yeah. Let me know how that goes, too. I'd like to see the outcome of that.
Rose, I have to slap myself if I do this at times. I get you. And memory is fallible. Exactly, Agape.
Yes, memory is fallible.
Memory is fallible. Have it in writing. Please. Protect yourselves, people.
Okay. And expanding on the last question that we touched on, the stakeholders. Ooh. All right. Now, this is for writers. Common stakeholders for writers include publishers, agents, PR firms, and readers. Think of your stakeholders. Are you self-publishing on something like Amazon, or is someone else publishing for you? If you are self-publishing, how are you getting the word of your new book out there? Who will be affected if you hype too soon or delay release? If you're with a publisher, what is their soft date and hard date for release? What is the penalty if you break the contract?
Don't.
So
just I'm gonna say first off, don't. If you're a writer, and an agent has secured you a contract with a publisher, you don't miss that deadline. Just don't. Trust me. Your career will not recover from it because you are not George R. Martin. All the other stuff is pretty self-explanatory. If you have any questions, please let us know. But the big one is this. If you're a writer and you secure a contract with a publisher, in all caps, bold, underline, italicize, do not miss your deadlines.
Yeah, please.
Just don't. You get to clear. Guys are hilarious. I'm just reading chat. Chat's funny.
Okay. Stakeholders for game devs. Common stakeholders for game developers include publishers, marketing and PR firms, investors, and gamers. To determine your stakeholders, ask yourself, are you self-publishing on a CDN or is someone else publishing for you? If self-publishing, how are you getting the buzz about your new game out there? Who will be disappointed if the release is delayed? And lastly, if with a publisher, what is their soft date and hard date for release? Again, what is the penalty if you break the contract?
Now, I'm not going to be as firm here, although, like Tedsy says, don't miss deadlines in general if you can avoid it. I agree. Some game publishers are a little more understanding than others. Again, my experience is only in the smaller publishers, but I wouldn't do it. More importantly, let's talk about the community. Let's talk about the stakeholders around you. If you're in the RPG Maker community, the community are your stakeholders.
Yes.
They will be the ones who will most likely play your game 90% over 10%. They will be the ones who will judge your game and judge its worth. So you need to keep that in mind when you're managing this project for your game. If you're part of the Unreal community, about the same thing. Unity, about the same thing. So if you're part of an indie community, keep that in mind. If you're putting out a game for everyone to play on like a CDN, then those players, the people who follow you in early access, the people who give you money in early access, the people who are going to write your reviews, those are your stakeholders. An amazing example is Edge of Eternity by Midgar Studios. Their players, under their early access, are their stakeholders. They are not really beholden to creating a project for anyone else other than those people. Ergo, they answer to them. And they do listen to their community feedback. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. The torch holders, yes. Who will be disappointed if you delay release? Me, first off. Well, I hope you should be. Fecky, if you're disappointed that you missed your own deadline, then that's good.
Yeah.
You know, self-shaming does work. Okay.
All right. So, what is project management?
So we did all of that. Now we're here.
Yes. This is all a process, by the way.
Let the real class begin.
Whether you're writing a book or designing a video game, a firm grasp of project management is necessary to ensure that you release your final product on time. So what is project management? According to usability.gov, it is the focus on planning and organizing a project and its resources. This includes identifying and managing the project lifecycle and efficiently guiding the project team through all phases until project completion. The project team are the people who are directly responsible for your project. This does not include people performing one-off or occasional solutions. The project life cycle are the stages of the project: initiating, planning, executing, completing, and post-mortem. Let's take a look at the project life cycle in more detail.
So this is where I give the disclaimer that the rest of this classroom is going to be really technical, and Teal will read off her things, and then when she gets off to the end of the slide, I'm going to go ahead and do my best to put it into something more layman-like, because we're about to get real technical. And we did highlight the important things during the slides that kind of draw attention. So shall we dive in, honey?
Let's dive on into this. This is one of my favorite subjects, by the way.
It is.
Okay, let's talk about the project management life cycle.
Be nice, Kiyoya. I say teasingly. All right, here we go.
Okay. The first phase, initiating. This is when you define the project, answering all the above questions like goals, timeline, and budget. The next phase is planning. This is when you develop a roadmap for everyone to follow. Please note that this roadmap isn't a Bible for the project. Executing. This is when you and your project team create the deliverables, such as chapters, manuscripts, maps, assets, code, etc. As a project manager, you will also monitor things and make sure that you and your team stay on track. The next phase is your closing phase. This is when you complete the project and close it out. For writing, you would query a publisher or self-publish. For video games, this is when the game goes gold. The last phase is your post-mortem. This is a short amount of time after closing the project when you've been able to digest the process. You then review what went right, what went wrong, and how things can be done better next time. Please note that the post-mortem does not include consumer feedback. Incorporating user reviews is a different process entirely.
So chat's talking about the Sonic games, and that's actually that's actually pretty much, games are released, people hate games, back to drawing board. So truth, but let's go ahead. Oh, the deliverables in context of the game dev. The deliverables are things like creating your code, your assets, your maps, putting together different things. Teal words are repeating. I don't know what that means, Chaos. So let me go ahead and kind of put this in as layman terms as possible. When you're initiating your project, you're doing all that good stuff we just mentioned in all those other slides. You're figuring out your timeline, your stakeholders, your scope. Your planning phase is where you actually take all that information and you basically make a list, a timeline of how you're going to put your game together. Oh, the stream has been repeating.
We have a technical glitch in our stream.
Oh, well, the stream health is good. Try refreshing, see if that helps.
Yeah.
See if that helps. Otherwise, let us know. Okay. Okay. Take care, Becky. Okay. Yeah. Refresh your page, F5. So, planning is creating that timeline.
Yes.
Okay. And getting it from the start all the way to the finish using whatever methodology, which we'll go over in a little while. Executing is actually doing it.
Right.
So all of that game creation that you go through when you're making your game, all of that writing when you're writing your manuscript, that's the executing phase. So all that stuff you're used to doing as a game dev or a writer, that's the green one. Everything that we talked about prior that's organizing it is the red and the yellow.
Right.
Closing is when you publish your game on Steam or itch.io and it's a gold release. That's that, or you query the publisher or the agent and you're ready to get your game shot, your manuscript shopped.
Right.
And then finally, post-mortem is when you internally review everything that you've done afterwards. This is not incorporating reviews from your players or your readers. This is your own review on how you could tighten your process next time.
Right.
I'm sorry to hear that, Chaos. It's got to be Wi-Fi or something. Yeah. Yeah. Or buffering, as Despair says.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that was an overview of the life cycle.
Yeah.
Let's talk about project management methodologies.
So again, it's going to get highly technical. I'll do my best.
Okay. These are the most common methodologies for project management. You have traditional, agile, change management, and process-based. Different methodologies can help in different applications of writing and game design. Pick the one that is best for you and your project.
So a lot of this is going to come down to both what you're trying to accomplish and your personal choice. Some people work better as sequential project managers as opposed to agile.
Right.
When we go through this, again, we'll at the very end give our recommendation.
Right.
But you have to choose the one that works for you. And Kiyoya, if this seems familiar, yes, this is project management 101.
Yes, it is. Project management 101.
101. So, yeah, we're going to go over all of these, and for each one of these, Teal's going to go, and she's going to go in depth talking about it on the slide, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to relate to kind of, like I said, a layman's way, sort of every man's way to approach it.
Right.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so let's talk about the traditional or sequential methodologies. The Waterfall Method is the most traditional way to plan out a project. You sequence each task in order, leading to a final deliverable. Then you work them in order, one at a time, until completed. Sample applications of this method are creating a story outline, sorting through graphical and audio resources, or cleaning your office space.
So what I'm going to do, since we mostly have game devs in our audience, is I'm going to apply this method to how you would create a game. And I'm going to apply it to a map. So we have our map in our engine. A sequential way of doing things would be to create the base map, then deform the terrain. So you make your mountains, your valleys, add a water line for your rivers and lakes, then add brush and cover on the texture of that terrain to give things such as grass, dirt, etc., flowers. Then you would start adding in trees and rocks and slowly adding them in along the critical path. Then you would add them along the optional paths. You would add in any architecture like ruins or houses and for villages. Then you would add in all the other fluff that's needed bit by bit. So you'd add in all the trees over there in that area the player's probably never going to go into. You put that castle off in the distance that they're headed towards but are not going to reach in this map. Then you start adding in the clouds. Then you start adding in the lighting. Then you start adding in the particle effects, the birds, the monsters, etc. That in order is Waterfall. And Kyoya says that's how I do it. It's the most meticulous and logical approach to me. Right? If you are highly logically minded, Waterfall is the way to do it. And
Right.
SBU always add in the booze. Always.
Always. All right. A step beyond Waterfall, the critical path method is based on the concept that some tasks cannot be started until the previous task has been finished. This allows you to allocate resources to get the most important work done, while rescheduling any lesser priority tasks that may be clogging up your bandwidth. Sample applications of this method are plotting out a scene or cutscene, creating an animation sequence, or building a specific piece of code or script.
So again, putting this in an example for game developers, this is a step beyond. By the way, this has nothing to do with critical paths in a map at all.
No.
They happen to have the same term because terms are awesome. So when you do a critical path project management methodology, you have to, I also incorporate a bunch of these too. Yeah, so do I. I incorporate a lot of these whenever I'm creating these creator classrooms. Waterfall and critical path is pretty much how we put these together. When I do anything in the critical path methodology, like for example, if I am creating a document for a battle system, I can't fill in what the attributes do until I define the attributes. So I have to define what the attributes are for the battle system. In the Rose and Hearts battle system design document, I actually had to come up with those attributes and what they did. Then I could define how they would formularically work.
Right.
I couldn't do step 2 until I did step 1. So if you're highly logical, and as Kyoya said, logical and meticulous, this one along with Waterfall may very well be your way to do things. It's slow. It does not allow you to advance until the previous step has been done.
Yes.
And if you're working with a team, you could stopgap really hard. For example, if Teal wants to create a map for the game, and she can't do it until I create an asset. By the critical path methodology, she can't create the map until I create the asset.
Correct. She's
waiting on me.
Right.
Yeah, slow and agonizing. That's what I meant to say. Thank you, Kyoya. So there are pluses and minuses. However, when it works, she'll have that asset, and then that asset will be ready to go and she can plug it right into the world.
Right.
Now, we're not talking about placeholders and all of that. I understand how game development works. We're just using these as examples. Big Game Free asks a question. What do you think if you have a new idea for the time-sensitive game, but it might set you back a few days, like a game jam? Where do you draw the line between taking the risk and adding the mechanic versus dropping it at the risk of meeting the deadline? Our game jam video, we did a video on creating game jam games. Our recommendation is this. When you decide to be in a game jam and you sign up and you know the things like the theme and the elements like we have for ours, sit down and spend about 2 to 3 hours and brainstorm your game. Come up with everything and then stick with that because you have such a limited amount of time. If you can quickly add in something that's neat like a flashy menu, that's fine, but don't change your core for a game jam game, for a contest, because then you run the risk of not having that game ready and then you're disqualified.
Right.
All right, moving on.
Let's move on. Agile methodologies are based on delivering project requirements iteratively and incrementally throughout the project's life cycle. They allow you to adapt to changes quickly. You adjust your task as you go along rather than follow a linear path.
By the way, I am a Scrum Master. I mean, I am. That's one of the things that I've done. So.
Scrum builds on the prioritization of shorter development cycles, called sprints, and on the flexibility of the project team based on constant communication with the stakeholder. One person, called the Scrum Master, oversees the development process and clears away issues to help the rest of the team be more efficient.
They're a firefighter.
Sample applications of this method are writing a first draft scene by scene or chapter by chapter, developing a video game with a small team, or developing software in general.
This method is hugely popular in IT departments.
Yes.
So when I would do IT project management, a lot of times I would be in the position of Scrum Master, where my job wouldn't be so much to manage the project, like as in what people were doing. It would be assigning sprints and then clearing obstacles, which would be things like, hey, this person needs to have this tool, okay? This person needs to have this other piece of code already written by Joe over there. Stuff like that.
Right.
It's very, very stressful, but you get paid a lot of money. A really good way to think of Agile Scrum in, other than the whole video game development with small teams. Agile is a 80-year-old goat. That's hilarious, Kiyoya. So a really good example of Scrum in-game development that you're doing if you're a solo dev would be creating some kind of a list of things that you have to do. So you have your list of, I have to create these things in order to get my map done. I have to get these assets from this store over here. I have to download this bit of code from GitHub. I have to pull up this music that I get from Humble Bundle. And you would create that list, and then being your own Scrum Master, you would be the one to set reminders for yourself, automated reminders.
Right.
Do this, do that. Hey, the Humble Bundle is only on sale for 3 more days. So every single one of those days, you get an automated reminder that you set that you got to go buy the Humble Bundle. Yes, Scrum is better in teams, but you can do it yourself if you learn how to hound the shit out of yourself.
Right.
And I have scrummed my way through solo projects. Scheduler's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own demons.
Okay. Kanban focuses on visualization, workflow, and limiting work in progress, and it emphasizes just-in-time delivery. This method uses a board called a Kanban board that summarizes the status of the project, its progress, and any issues related to the work. This approach is best for work that requires steady output during the project's life cycle, wherein teams signal when they are ready for more work. Sample applications of this method are a writer and editor working on revisions together, an artist or composer working with a lead designer to create game assets, or any project where a great deal of output is needed over time.
So in game development, this is best applied when you have people helping you on your project, such as artists or musicians or coders or animators.
Right.
And what you would do with the Kanban method is you would have something like a Trello board. And you would have all the assets that the asset creator, we'll just go ahead and say art, for example. So if we were going to do Kanban for Rosenhearts and we had an artist for the busts, what we would do is we would have a list of all the busts for all the characters with all their poses and emotions. And then what we would do is we'd have a list for Victoria. And we pop it over to their work in progress. As soon as they're done with that work in progress, they'd pop it over to review. And while we're reviewing, we would pop the next one over to work in progress for Naomi. And we would keep doing that.
Yes.
Kanban, if you have to have a tool, you have to have a tool like Trello or something similar, Hack and Plan. You have
Hack and Plan is very popular with game dev, by the way.
Super popular.
Yeah.
But it works. But it really requires everyone to have access and be using that tool. If your artist does not get onto Trello, Kanban's going to fail.
Yeah. Everybody has to be on board with this.
Yes. But when it works, it is beautiful. Okay.
Hey, let's move to change management methodologies. Change management methodologies plan for risks and take control of change when it happens. The event chain method emphasizes identifying the potential risks that often lay just beyond the project's actual scope and preparing for them. There is always a plan on what to do if and when these risks occur, in order to minimize the impact on the project's schedule and success. Sample applications of this method are a writer planning for real-world interruptions, a game development team planning for changes in technology, or bug testing a piece of software during the beta phase.
So this is the least done in the development community that Teal and I are a part of.
Yeah.
Both the Unreal and the RPG Maker communities. And it really, really, really should be done more. Mm-hmm. One of them is that whole versioning of the engine. Yeah, you probably don't want to upgrade your engine once you're working on a project. In fact, we always advise against it. But part of that may be looking at the engine and looking at its roadmap release and deciding if maybe you wait to work in your engine until the correct version is out.
Yes. Real
world example. When Teal and I decided to move to the Unreal Engine, we actually looked at the roadmap and we did not start working on the Rosenhearts, except for a few proof of concepts, until 4.25 came out.
Yes.
Because it had that internal tool we really wanted. I think the animator and the new version of the particle accelerator.
Yeah, it had new versions of what we wanted.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I'm tired. But yeah, we wanted those things, so we waited. So that's where you would use change management. You would use change management, event chain.
Event chain.
You would use event chain to kind of look forward, look on the horizon before making a actual decision.
Yes.
So Kyoya says, my game started on RPG Maker VX Ace. Then MV came out. Since then it's been scrapped and I'm starting over in MZ. That's a perfect example of how event chain could fix it.
Yes.
If VX Ace has been out for X number of years and you know a new engine's coming, maybe you only start building the assets and don't start building the game itself until the new engine comes out, in case you might want to switch. Event chain requires a little bit of precognition and a whole lot of guesswork.
Yeah. Okay. In the extreme project method, under change management, requirements are constantly changing throughout the project as a response to environmental factors such as competition, technology, and economic conditions. Each phase of the project learns from the preceding ones and redirects the next phase in an attempt to converge on an acceptable goal and solution. Note that this method is best suited when creating a project on a very short timeline, as in from days to weeks.
Right.
Sample applications of this method are creating a short story for a writing contest, creating a proof of concept for a demo, or creating an entry for a game jam contest.
So there's that last one, game jam. Extreme project is the way to do it. So what you do with extreme project is you have an ultimate goal in mind, and that's it. And you list out all those little pieces we talked about earlier, and then you become flexible to reach the goal, even if it means changing the product to reach the goal. I do not recommend ever using this for anything outside of very short time periods, like Teal said, days to weeks.
Days to weeks,
That's it. If it's anything longer, this is a terrible way. And I know this from experience because I have worked for companies that have used this for long term, month to year, and it is a ass backwards disaster.
It is bad.
So only use this for really short application. Game jams. There's your answer. Okay.
Okay, let's take a look at process-based methodologies.
Sorry for the text getting real small there.
Whoops. Process-based methodologies focus on work as a collection of processes. They are marked by continuous improvement to achieve the vision or goal. The lean method is built around streamlining and cutting out waste. That's going lean. By creating a breakdown of your team's processes that identifies and eliminates bottlenecks and delays. See waste. The goal is to do more with less. Less people, less money, and less time. Sample applications of this method are running a manuscript through beta readers while under a time limit, reworking a video game that has become bloated with features, or scaling back a project that has gone too far beyond its original scope.
So, outside of writing and game development, lean is often used in other industries, such as either the industrial industry or the technology industry, a lot of times to get something done as cheap as possible with as few resources as possible by legitimately cutting out all the fluff.
Cutting it all out.
This would be, for example, it's going to take a couple seconds to get to the point here. This would be, for example, if you were in a technology company and you were trying to create an app that tracked restaurants. And originally you were going to have all these cross sections of, filtering here and there and cross-sectioning it with geolocations, et cetera, and you have to have that app out in 3 weeks. Then you cut it all down to where it's just you type in the zip code and it pulls up the restaurants. That's an example of lean in the tech industry. In the game development industry, in your game development instance, it would be when you are trying to streamline the game that you're creating, when it's become either bloated, when it's when you've lost sight of how the goal is going to be accomplished, when you need to revisit everything because your game is not getting out, it may be time to put it through that lean processor and just go lean and get rid of all of that waste. Bloated. Oh, you have to go. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Kyoya. Thank you for showing up. Talk to you soon. Hope to see you tomorrow.
Okay. Let's talk about Six Sigma.
Ugh, this is my least favorite.
In the Six Sigma method, quality of the final product is placed over everything else. It focuses on process improvement and variation reduction. You measure the defects and/or bugs present and eliminate as many as possible. A project is said to have achieved a Six Sigma rating if 99.99966% of the final product is defect-free. Sample applications of this method are editing a manuscript to submit to a publishing house, or patching a game that has gone gold but was found to have bugs the beta did not catch. Yeah.
So, I'm going to come out and say it. This is my least favorite because of number one. I love putting my manuscripts together. I love writing them. I love working with Teal for the dev editing. I love the revisions. I love everything until we get down to that last absolute part where every single mistake has to be removed before you send it to the agent or publisher.
Yes.
I hate that. I hate that so much. But it's necessary.
You have to do that.
Six Sigma methodology, you will see when we get to the recommendation parts, is so important when it comes to the details, that minutia of final perfection. How is it done? It's done by overanalyzing. Someone said in the Degaca Let's Play we just did, play your game bit by bit, fix it bit by bit, play it over and over again, piece at a time. Keep replaying it over and over again, fixing it bit by bit. Don't stop. That's the Six Sigma method. So that's what you have to do with your game. And it sucks, but do it.
But you gotta do it.
Gotta do it. All right.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, jokes on stream.
Okay.
All right.
Here are Studio Blues recommendations.
Yep.
Here are project management recommendations for writers. Please note that these are overall recommendations, not scenario-based like the examples for each methodology discussed in the previous slides. For the short story writer, we recommend using Extreme Project for the draft and Critical Path for the revisions. For the novel writer, we recommend using Waterfall for planning, Anything Agile for the drafting, and Critical Path for the revisions. For the editor, we recommend using Critical Path for developmental edits and Six Sigma for grammar edits.
All right, so let's go over these one by one to kind of put that in layman's terms. For a short story writer, when you're drafting, you want to hit it in as short as possible, having the goal in mind, that final goal, whatever your short story is going to be about, but being willing to change anything to get it done. So if your final goal of your story is Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, the main character gets stoned to death. Spoiler alert. That's the final goal. So under Extreme Project, changing anything else about that, changing the names of the characters, the situations in which they're meeting, how the person is chosen in the lottery, all of that would be extreme project because you could change all of that to get to the protagonist is stoned to death at the end.
Right.
And then critical path for the revisions. Once you have that draft of your lottery story ready, then you take the most important part, which would be, your climax. Then you would work into fixing it and pulling back each part. So you'd have your concentric ring around your climax, and you'd have your ring around your rising action, your ring around your setup. All of that little pieces, parts you would look at, and you wouldn't go forward until the part you were at was done.
Right.
For novel writing, I'll go a little further here. Planning, waterfall, 100%. Just put it in order. Do that meticulous, logical, one at a time, agonizingly slow way of planning it.
Yeah.
Then put that to the side and use an agile methodology like Kanban or Scrum, where you start hitting it in sprints. Get your 500 words, 1,000 words done a day. Whenever I write a manuscript for any story, I do 1,000 to 1,500 words a day, no matter what. And I keep going until that first draft is done. Then I will do critical path, the same thing that I talk about with short stories for the revisions. And I'll start with the big piece, the tiny little piece that I need to focus on. When that's done, I'll pull out and I'll do a little bit more. And I won't start on the second part until the first part's done.
Right.
Sometimes I'll go chapter by chapter. I'll revise the first chapter. And I won't start working on the second chapter until the first one's done. And again, and again, and again, all the way to the end. For editing, critical path for development edits. That is chapter by chapter or piece by piece, paragraph by paragraph for short stories.
Yes.
When Teal does her edits of my manuscripts, she starts at the beginning and she will not go to chapter 2 until she has torn chapter 1 apart.
Right.
In fact, the way she does it is she will do, I think it's like 5 chapters at a time, 3 to 5 chapters at a time. Then she sits me down with her 3 to 5 chapters printed up with all the red lines on it and walk me through every single one of them in order.
Right.
Because I may have a big piece of information that drops later on that explains why she's confused early. But that doesn't mean that it abates and takes away her confusion. I need to address why is she confused here, and is it an acceptable amount of confusion that I answer? Is it 3 pages, 30 pages, 300 pages?
Right.
All that has to be developed. So that's why we say critical path. And then when she goes to the grammar edits, it's Six Sigma. It's literally, there is no room for error.
You cannot. No. You cannot have a single error if you're going to be serious about submitting your writing for publishing.
Yes. And to answer your question, Rose, yes, this counts for manga. Absolutely.
For manga, for comics, visual novels.
Yes.
All of it.
Graphic novels, whole 9 yards.
All of it.
No room for error. Okay.
Okay. Next, here's our recommendations for game developers.
Have fun with this one. All right.
Again, please know that these are overall recommendations and they're not scenario based like the examples for each methodology we discussed before. For the single person developer, use Lean for development and Six Sigma for beta testing before going gold.
Right. So let me go ahead and get more comfortable here. All right. The reason that I say for a single person developer using Lean, if you're a single person developer, you're not creating Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Nope.
You're going to create something amazing, but it's not going to be that. So what you want to do is you want to constantly, when you're in that development, alpha and beta, you want to constantly be taking as little resources as possible. Now, we always say scale back, scale back, scale back. That's what we mean by going lean as a solo developer. Don't try to do the sun, moon, and stars. Don't feature bloat like so many games that we've seen. Instead, get what you need to get done in order to get your solo project finished.
Yes.
Go lean. Then you Six Sigma the hell out of it to make sure as many bugs as possible are removed before going gold. If you do this and you're a solo developer, even if you're in a fan, mostly fanish community, like making RPG Maker fan games, whatever, it doesn't matter. You will have a better product than anyone who doesn't follow this.
Right.
Because you went in using the least amount of resources necessary to tell your story, and making sure it was as error-free as possible.
For the small team developer, use Scrum for design, Kanban for resources, and Six Sigma for beta testing before going gold.
I apologize. I thought you did all of that. My bad. I guess I'll just go then. Okay. Small team, yeah, Scrum for design. So what you want to do is you want to have your lead developer, and your lead developer is going to be your Scrum master. They're going to be the person to make sure that all the obstacles are removed for your artists, level designers, script writers, etc., 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 to get their job done. For the resource part, like what we do with Rosenhearts, do that Kanban, have that Kanban board, Trello, or Hack and Plan, which is our preferred tool of choice.
Right.
And then finally, Six Sigma the heck out of it.
Please.
You get as many, if you're a solo or a small team, you want as many bugs fixed as possible before you go gold. Chaos says, all rise, Judge Teal to judge our game work.
Yes.
Bubba Hotep says, use Lean and Six Sigma in your 12-hour entry. Exactly.
That's it.
Bubba Hotep knows what's up. I get the feeling no matter how much I try, Teal is probably going to murder me with a red marker because I keep saying mom instead of mom. I don't know if the character's supposed to say it like that. She'll forgive it. Mm-hmm. She gets dialogue and cadence. Dialect.
For the large team developer, use Event Chain overall, an Agile method for development, and Six Sigma for patching after going gold.
Right, so this one's going to be a little bit harder to work with because you're talking about a large-scale team. Mm-hmm. That Event Chain is where you are... Brain went blank for a second. The Event Chain is where you are making the changes that are necessary in order to stay on track. And yes. I'm probably butchering that, so please forgive me. An Agile method for development is the main part I'm thinking about, like either Kanban or Scrum. The important thing is to keep the obstacles away from your dev team.
Right.
Make sure that your dev team, whether it be 100 or 500, a 500-person dev team, holy shit, have their obstacles removed. Scrum Master, very important. And then finally, this is different. Before going gold, you want to have good, solid bug testing. Don't be Bethesda. Good, solid bug testing. But afterwards, when you start patching, that's where Six Sigma applies. So it's a little different because a large-scale team made by hundreds of people are not going to catch all the bugs.
They're not.
It is not possible. So you want to have that Six Sigma methodology afterwards.
Yeah, for your patches.
Right.
All right, let's look at two separate games now. One that did project management wrong and one that did it right.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Project management done wrong.
Time to pick on our favorite game by our favorite developer.
Fallout 76 by Bethesda. We're looking at you, Todd Howard. What went wrong? It used a modified version of a single-player engine called the Creation Engine.
It just worked.
Instead of one more suited to multiplayer in a network setting.
Right.
The development team rushed the project from alpha to beta after a successful showcase, at E3 in 2018. The beta was also rushed and changes were not properly implemented prior to launch. Security was not tested outside of the test environment. Therefore, the game had plenty of exploits. Lastly, the game's core concept of players being humans only was scrapped for live NPCs when the Wastelanders expansion came out, requiring more patches and creating more issues.
So, without trashing Bethesda too much, and yeah, Chaos, you do need it. We need the Excalibur face slime emoji.
We seriously do.
And yeah, SB, you're correct. The Creation Engine is the Gamebryo engine with sticky tape and bubblegum. The biggest problem with this was they released it. Todd Howard got on stage, talked a lot. People went apeshit.
Yep.
And Bethesda suddenly had to put out a game.
They suddenly had to put out a game. Yeah, that's pretty much how it went.
Now, I'm not saying Fallout 76 wasn't in development prior. I'm just saying that any decision they made after that had to go as fast as possible because they could not miss that release.
In other words, they overhyped a game that wasn't ready.
Right. And it's very... Thank you.
Derp.
Thank you, Derp. Yep. Thank you, Chaos. And yes, Big Game Freak points 1 and 2 hurt them the most.
1 and 5 really hurt them the most.
That's what I meant to say. Because when Todd Howard gave his presentation at E3 and said, every player is a person, it didn't click in people's heads what that meant and how that was going to play out. And there were questions aplenty by people after that presentation to the days leading up to the game being released. Well, wait a minute, without NPCs, isn't the world going to feel hollow? Oh, don't worry about that. There are holotapes and there are robots. And people kept asking the question. A lot of players were concerned about number 5. And yet the team still followed it as its core concept. Unsurprisingly, number 5 is the biggest reason that Fallout 76 was derided. Not the reason it failed, the reason it was derided and looked at with scorn. Because people were like, the wasteland is so lifeless. People like Legacy Killer HD and ESO, those YouTubers who would play on this. Jim Sterling tore this game to pieces because it just felt so lifeless without people.
Yeah.
Then when Wastelanders came out, there was no way that Wastelanders could repair that damage. So all of it, from start to finish, they overhyped, they underdelivered, they did not manage that project at all.
No, they didn't. And so that was the result.
What was it?
Fallout 76.
Okay. By the way, before we go to the next one, this is my favorite tale of project management done right in the industry.
Red Dead Redemption 2 from Rockstar Studios. What went right? Early development began during the final stages of the Red Dead Redemption, the first one. So they knew what they wanted to do before main development began.
Yep.
The team used lessons from Grand Theft Auto 5's port to PS4 and Xbox One to learn about engine limitations and focus on the most sustainable parts. They took the lore and story parts from the first Red Dead Redemption that interested both the developers and the players to focus on in the sequel's story. Upon realizing that individual groups of Rockstar Studios, like in San Diego and London, couldn't fulfill this project's scope, the company co-opted every studio into one massive team.
To answer your question, Despair, yes. Yes, Rockstar is not kind to its devs.
No.
This is not a good example of treating your devs right.
No.
I abhor the way that people like Rockstar treat their developers. Them and Gearbox are not my friends. Having said that, from a project management standpoint, not a resource management, not a human resource or human level, none of that.
But the project
was handled beautifully. They knew when they were finishing up Red Dead Redemption 1 that they wanted to make a Red Dead 2.
Yeah.
So they started that initial stage. Then they used the lessons that they learned from Grand Theft Auto's port from PS3 to PS4 on how they could make sure the engine optimized and worked properly, because it's the same engine. I think it's actually the Rockstar engine or something. Then they took the lore that the developers and the players liked. They took what they loved and they incorporated it so that people were getting what they loved. Red Dead Redemption 2 is Red Dead Redemption 1 plus more.
Right.
And then, and this was the big one, at a certain point, they realized that San Diego, London, and the other Rockstar studios together couldn't do this, so they co-opted them all. I don't think they've ever done this before.
They've never done that before.
I think this was their first time, into one massive team to finish this game. While this game did not do well to its devs, from a project management standpoint, it was highly successful.
Yes. So, here are our recommended tools. This is from Studio Blue.
Yeah, we recommend these.
For the writer, we recommend Rike.com.
Check it out.
For the game developer, Hack and Plan.
We use Hack and Plan all the time.
And then for general use, either projectmanager.com or zoho.com.
So the beautiful thing about this, projectmanager.com is more centered just around project management in general, and it's a great online project management software. Zoho has a suite of things. So if you're forming an LLC or a small company, you may want to consider Zoho for things like, email project management, that kind of stuff. All of it. Yeah, Rike.com. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It should be it. Hackandplan.com. Hackandplan.com. Go there.
Definitely. Try out Hack and Plan.
Mm-hmm. Cannot recommend it enough. And we put our citation source down below because we pulled a lot of information from this article on Reich, and we don't want to make it sound like we just took the credit. Reich is for writers, Hack and Plan is for game developers, and general use projectmanager.com or zoho.com. And the citation source is just what we use to pull a lot of the information from for organization purposes.
Right.
Okay.
Going back to point 4, Red Dead Redemption. What did that exactly mean? I want to understand the unique advantage.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, so they took the lore and story parts from the first Red Dead Redemption that interested both the developers and the players. So, when they started to create Red Dead Redemption 2, what they did was they took all the pieces of the story gameplay, so walking through the story. Oh, that is 3. I'm a moron. Thank you, Despair.
4.
Upon realizing, okay, so this was the big one. And I believe it's actually the game's director who went on an article, I think it was like IGN or something. He was giving an interview. And what happened is Rockstar has a lot of different studios, kind of like Ubisoft. Like Ubisoft has Ubisoft Montreal, etc. Rockstar has Rockstar San Diego, Rockstar London, etc., etc., etc. The game director who was in charge of Red Dead Redemption 2 and the main team, the executive team in charge of it, realized relatively early on that there was no way any single one of their teams could successfully put the game together in a short amount of time that was necessary.
Right.
In other words, instead of it would have taken like 5-6 years, something like that, some crazier, higher amount of time. That was unacceptable because Red Dead Redemption was stupid successful and they wanted to ride the wave.
Yeah.
So what they did was they co-opted. That means they combined all of these little minor studios, these smaller studios, into one big mega studio. Hey, Rose. I'm glad it was helpful. Thank you so much. Have a great night. And that's what they did. That's what it means. They co-opted their studios into one mega team. And it was huge. I think it's one of the largest teams of game developers ever. I believe so. I believe this is one of the biggest overall teams.
It was.
It could have been more successful had they released it on PC. Well, I mean, you're not wrong.
And just think about how they kept those teams coordinated.
Yeah,
you know,
all over the world.
You probably had not only Scrum Masters, but you used Kanban boards and Trello and that sort of thing to keep everyone on track.
Because people are all over the planet. And
all over the planet.
With different cycles of sleep. And yes, the brutalization, as Despair said earlier, was terrible.
Oh yeah,
because people were
the toll, the people cost was huge and
unacceptable in every way possible. But to answer your question, Big Game, yes, it was all hands on deck for a flagship.
Yes,
and that's why this game was massive. One of the reasons this game was massively successful. It was an amazing game to begin with.
Yes,
but it was put together so well.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm sure you have lots of questions.
I'm sure you do.
This is a big topic. They have entire courses devoted to project management and project management for game devs, writers, etc., as well as business people. So I titrate a lot of information down into this. If you have questions after this presentation is done, feel free to shoot us a message.
Yes.
An email, whatever.
Over DM. Hit us up on Discord.
Hit us and ask us the questions, because this is really important to understand. Your game is only going to be as good as your organization.
100%. SB wants to know if they can go to the toilet. Yeah, I need to go to the toilet too. Teal, can you man this for a second?
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Steel and Teal, when is a good time to bring all devs together? When you realize that your one team is not going to get your game project done and out the door on time. When your one team is just absolutely slammed and you need more help. That's when it's a good time to bring all of your different teams together and work on this one project. And as Big Game Freak says, it's a flagship project. Let's just say this is the one game, the one big game that's putting your studio on the map. yes, you want to have all hands on deck for that. Would you ever explore making an MZ mashup collaborative project in the community after we got good on MZ? An MZ mashup collaborative project. Maybe. You know, it all depends on I guess the time that we have, but yeah. Maybe MZ mashup collaborative. Sure. This is something I want Steele to address more. He's more the project manager where that goes. When the villain is about to murder the party, that's when you need to combine your powers and summon Captain Murder. Thank you, SV. Keeping it light as always. Any more questions? I could probably go on all night about different aspects of project management. But I'm more of the business operations part for project management. Still, here's a question here that Big Game Freak has. He says, would you ever explore making an MZ mashup collaborative project in the community after we get good on MZ?
That's not a bad question. You know, I'm going to go ahead and say this. We did not abandon the engine. We just moved a project from one engine to the next. And I think that under the right circumstances, we're going to have to get a copy of MZ. We don't actually have a copy. Yeah. I think under the right circumstances, a collab project with us and other members in the community would be a lot of fun. We could use the techniques we know to kind of teach through an example. And that might be a lot of fun if it's applied the right way. So it's not off the board. I would say it's a good possibility, but there would have to be a couple of things that would have to fall into place first. One of it being we're not running a game jam. I say laughing nervously because this is a lot of work right now. How do you join the RPG Maker community? You sign on to RPG Maker Web or get onto RPG Maker Discords like ours and Drifties and Hawks and Toasties, and you start making a game in RPG Maker.
Yeah.
Or start playing games in RPG Maker and talking about them.
Yeah.
It's a really easy community to join.
And just interact with people. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of punted on the Big Game Freaks question because I wasn't sure about our timeline.
We have to have the time to do it.
We have a really packed project timeline right now.
We do. It is not a not want to. It is a do we have the time to do it? However, it might be a fun thing to do in the future where when we reach a certain number of creator classrooms, and we're kind of good with teaching, then instead we collab a project like this to teach through example.
That'd be good.
Kind of like the amalgamation that Drifty and T are doing. That might be a fun thing to do. Don't want to step on anyone's toes, but that might be a way to continue teaching.
Could be.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Any other questions? I've been eating this York peppermint patty. It's so good.
Yeah. Get the sensation.
Oh, yeah.
What's the best method to make a game on a time crunch?
Lean. The bare minimum. Do exactly what's needed to get it done.
Yeah.
Cut out all the fluff. Go lean.
Cut out all the fat. I would say trim the fat.
Yeah, you don't want to be adding in fluff when you have like 5 minutes. Yeah, Lean and Six Sigma.
Lean and Six Sigma.
Look at your boy.
Yes!
Oh, yeah! Big Game Freak got it. He got it. You are very welcome, RPG Emma. I hope it helped.
Yeah.
If you have any last minute question, 1 hour and 30 minutes? Are you kidding me? I thought this was going to be at least 2 hours, if not 3.
No.
It was 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We did a 30-page presentation with you doing the lecture and me doing the explanations in 1 hour and 30. We are getting good at this, Teal.
I think so, or else we're pretty damn sloppy and chat's just rolling with it.
Yeah, somebody gonna come by later and go, well, you guys actually forgot to mention this particular methodology, which is used by this, and you know. And
then we'll have somebody come along and go, yeah, get good, scrubs.
That'll be cheap. Crunch time wasn't fun, but it was worth it. Oh.
Crunch time is never fun.
It's never fun.
No.
It's never fun.
Oh, thank you, Chaos Streamer. Look at that. Look at the slime support.
So my question to the 11 people, that's what that says, 11. My question to the 11 people who are left, did this help? Do you feel like this can help you with the organization of your game project or writing project?
Yeah.
And if so, was there anything that really helped you? If you're watching this on VOD on YouTube.
Thank you for the sub, Average Tedsy.
Thank you. That's awesome. There's a good answer.
Yep. Use it for October.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, use it for Hawktober. In fact, if you use this for the Hawktober Jam and you get a place, let Hawk know.
Let him know.
Studio Blue Project Management class. For the win.
For the win. And if you're watching this on VOD,
right.
Type in your question in the comment section.
Please do.
We will answer it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let us know if you have any questions. Let us know if there's something you agree or don't agree on. Hawktober Agape is Hawk Zombies October Game Jam. It always deals with something monstery, Halloween-y, horror-y, because his birthday, I think, is actually Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last thing I do before I get some much needed sleep. Good night, Tedsy. Take care. Thank you so much again for the sub.
There's the link to Hawk's Game Jam.
Yes.
Thank you, Big Brain Freak, for posting that.
Yeah,
yes.
We will be following this with love because Hawk runs great game jams. Like, if you like game jams in this community, Human, Hawk, Drift, DT, not necessarily in that order. They're all amazing.
They're all good.
Follow those.
Yeah.
Any other last minute questions before we call it sleep? Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're across the pond, aren't you, SB? If that's the case, then yes. We're not. It's late here. Any last minute questions relating to project management? Anything that you want clarified? Because when I hit that button and the credits start rolling, it's going to be about maybe 10 minutes before Steel conks out.
Okay, Big Game Freak's going to make an arcade game. Yes, and it will be a good lean format.
Good.
Yes. That's going to be great. I hope to see that.
I can't wait.
I do like arcade games.
Yes, I absolutely love it. A good lean format. I love that, Big Game Freak. All right. Don't patronize me with bad accents, but SB, that's all I am, is bad accents and good advice. Because the other way around would be good accents and bad advice, and nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
It starts in 5 days for the Game Jam, yeah. Speaking of which, we have 4 more days of judging.
Yes, we do.
So that means that tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time, we're going to continue with our judging for the Studio Blue RPG Maker MZ. You got it now. Use it Game Jam.
Yes.
Unless you're advertising in English. Oh, stuck. Okay.
Okay.
Shall we call it for the evening?
Let's go ahead and call it.
All right. It is time to call it. Let's do the calling. Guys, it has been amazing as always. We're very grateful if this helped you out. I mean, that'll make us, let us know. If this helped you, we did our job.
Yes, please.
Yes. So please join us 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time tomorrow. Then on Wednesday, same time, as well as Dragon Quest XI. Thursday evening, Horizon Zero Dawn. Friday will be our final for the Game Jam, and then the AMA. So, if you like what you saw, lay the smack down like below, subscribe to our channel, consider supporting us on Patreon, connect with our Facebook, Twitter, Discord, and we'll see you in the next video.
See you next time.